It's time to make movies political again. I'm sorry. That is one of the funniest things I've read in a long time.
I could see you.
Interesting. Do we dare click on this? Do we dare click on this? You know that the censors, they are still out. They are still out for anti-vax coverage, quote unquote. I don't want to say it. It's going to get transcripted and I'm going to get shadow banned. I probably shouldn't have said that either. Hello. Hello there. Welcome back to the political spectrum. It's an extra special episode. I'm gonna pull the bumper music down real fast because we're gonna jump right in. It's extra special for a couple of reasons. It's episode 10 of the show, which might not sound like a lot to you, but it means something to me. And that's one reason. The other reason is we're gonna do something a little bit different today. We're gonna do a review. This is a review show. We're gonna be reviewing a website that purports to be a presenter of unbiased news. And you know, if you're a fan of the show, and you know who you are, I know all of you. If you're a fan of the show, you know that we typically like to use a site called allsides.com. And we use that to kind of go through and get a little bit from the left, a little bit from the right, a little bit from the center. And, you know, there's a bias rating. And on our political spectrum report, we go through that site and we discuss the news of the day, and I give you a hot take, no guide wires, no notes, no prep. All right. However, last night I was watching a podcast from a dude that I think is interesting. You might not like him. His name's Winston Marshall. Maybe you do like him. He was a guitar player from that band Mumford and Sons, and somehow or another, I can't remember what. He said something controversial, and that led to him leaving the band. I don't think it really was all that controversial, but one way or the other, now he's doing podcasts and things. And he came across my radar when he was doing a debate, I think at Cambridge. He's British, very fancy, with Nancy Pelosi on the concept of populism. And, well, let's just say my takeaway, regardless of what you think about the subject or Nancy Pelosi or this gentleman, Winston Marshall, my takeaway was, well, I don't know. Nancy Pelosi must have become Speaker of the House and now House Minority Leader somehow. But whatever debate skills she had are, let's just say they're rusty. Anyway, so his podcast got on my radar in that way. And anyway, he's got a sponsor called Ground.news, and it sounds a lot like what we use at allsides.com. In fact, when I was looking up the background on Ground.news, I learned that All Sides is actually one of the sites that they use to rank the bias of various news sites. So I was curious about it, and then I figured instead of just exploring it for myself, by myself, why don't we do this together as part of the political spectrum family, the JJ Michaels family, of which you are a cherished part. And let's take a look. So a couple things to say right off the top. If you are listening to this podcast as a normal podcast, as I think most of you do, that's okay. I'm going to walk you through this. You're not going to need like a visual. It might help if you want a visual. Then you can find us on YouTube at the Political Spectrum is the name of the thing, or JJ Michaels program. And also, I think our Spotify feed also includes video, but you don't need it. The other thing is, as I always say, nobody sponsors us yet. They could. I'd be willing for them to. But that's not what this is. Ground.news is not paying us, unfortunately, to do this. I just wanted to check it out, and I thought it'd be cool to do it together. And I think we're going to do a few of these. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do a review of All Sides on Monday. And then maybe later next week, there's some other things that I like to use to get as unbiased as possible news sources so that we can consume the news without being consumed by it, as we say here. So I'm going to jump into the review. One other warning. It's a paid site, and I couldn't find a free version or trial version. Maybe there is one. I couldn't find it, but it wasn't really all that expensive. There's 3 different pay levels. There's the whatever their basic level was, which is $10 a year, and then another one that's the middle level that's $30 a year, and then the other one that's called Vantage. It's $70 a year or something. And then always, you know how they do this, always the middle one's always most popular. It always says most popular. So, I clicked most popular. That's what we're going to do. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through this at the same time as I go through this. So far, all I've done is pay my dough for $20, I think, and paid for the year. That's the type of thing that I do for you, the JJ Michaels Political Spectrum family. I did that for you out of my own pocket. All I ask is that you become consumers of the news and not people who are eaten alive by it. That's all I'm asking. And I'm also asking to keep watching and listening to the show. I'm asking that too. You know what? I'm also asking you to tell other people about the show, but we don't need to get into what I'm asking. The point is, no money. No money is exchanged in hands yet. Anyway, so let's do it. Let me click over here. So if you are watching the video feed, what you can see is that it says you're all set. Because I did a few basic things to get this set up. It prompts you. It asks you to tell the site what type of news you're interested in. I chose to not give it any preferences. And then your location so that it can send you stuff that's relevant. And then now it says here, when I'm looking at my screen, it says you're all set. Start using our one-of-a-kind features to navigate the news. I'm going to move the screen over here. Okay, so one-of-a-kind features to navigate the news. And then I'm going to click here where it says learn more. You can't see that. So there we go. Learn more. And presumably it's going to give us a walkthrough of the site. Wow, I've got this zoomed in really far. So methodology. Diagrams have been used since ancient times. This is great. This is hilarious. All right, so methodology. If you can't see this, it's in really big writing. And it's kind of nice, by the way. It's starts in dark mode, and there's some sort of thing that looks like a schematic in the background. But anyway, I'm going to read it. Diagrams have been used since ancient times as a way to represent complex information in a simple way. Okay? At Ground.news, we use diagrams to give readers a visual breakdown of the entire media landscape so they can quickly understand what's going on. We take a comprehensive, data-driven approach to news. That sounds like the type of thing that folks on the political spectrum would enjoy. Okay, bias ratings. This feels familiar. The Ground.news bias ratings assess the political bias of news publications. They're based on the average rating of 3 independent news monitoring organizations, All Sides. That's ours. We use that one. It's not ours, but we use that one. Something called Apprentice Media and Media Bias Fact Check. Each news monitoring organization has their own methodology, including editorial reviews, blind bias surveys, independent reviews, and third-party research. The analysis is done in the context of U.S. political system. We use a combination of these ratings to offer the most comprehensive analysis, blah, blah, blah. Ratings take into consideration things like wording, story choices, political affiliation. Got it. This rating does not measure the bias of a specific news article. That's useful to know. The analysis is done on publication level. So they're going to give us a rating of the publication that is putting out the article, not necessarily the article itself. You might come across a news publication that has not been rated, blah, blah, blah. Don't care. Okay, great. Rating descriptions. This is the same as what All Sides uses, except the colors are a little different. I got to tell you, maybe even a little bit easier. On my screen, it's kind of like a gunmetal blue for far left, and then a light blue for left. Actually, on my screen, I don't even see the colors for right. I don't know. Presumably, they're shades of red. But we already know what these is. Right, like far left, left, lean left, censored, lean right, right, far right. You're not an idiot. You can figure that out. All right, factuality score. This is new for me. Ground.news factuality score is an assessment of the reporting practices of a news publication. The score is based on the average rating of 3 rating systems. the ones we mentioned, ad fontes, media, meat effect, blah, 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 blah. Oh, and Wikipedia. Interesting. The score takes into consideration things like the credibility of sources used. This is a factuality score. The speed at which corrections are made and whether the language retains context. This score does not measure the factuality of specific news articles. The analysis is done at the publication level. Again, all right, so everybody gets a bias score. Everybody gets a factuality score. Like, how biased are they? How fact-based are they, presumably, versus like opinion-based? By the way, timeout. If you just want to get to me talking about the news, we're going to do that, but with Ground.news. So just skip ahead. But for folks that are interested in whether or not they want to pay a subscription for this site, stay with me. All right. Ownership categories. This is also interesting. The ownership categories for each. This is interesting because who owns the news publication by, default, of course, has some impact on what they publish. Of course it does. All right. Anyway, the ownership categories for each news source were created by Ground.news. We researched, analyzed, and hand-coded ownership data for 2,276 news outlets and counting. Below are the general parameters for each category. You can learn more about our news ownership investigation at this link. So the categories are media conglomerates, collection of radio, television, print, other news sources owned by the same entity. Okay. Private equity, media outlets that have been purchased by private equity funds. Okay. Individuals with a net worth in the tens of millions or greater who have a significant stake in a media outlet, I guess like Bloomberg maybe. Government, primary government funded news sources. That'd be like NPR. Telecom, corporation, media sources owned by corporations that aren't media conglomerates or private equity firms. Not sure what that would be, but independent media that is free of influence by government or corporate interests, like the J.J. Michaels program. Other sources that we could not appropriately classify. All right. And then finally, formula. Not for babies. Their blind spot formula. Blind spot TM. Ooh, they trademarked it. It's weird. The TM comes after blind spot. Did they trademark blind spot? Maybe with the little logo. But anyway, blind spot formula. A blind spot, TM, is a news story that has political undertones and is disproportionately covered by media sources on one side of the political spectrum. This is what got me excited about the site. So what they're doing is they're not just showing us who's biased. They're also showing us biased coverage. And that is interesting to me. So let's just say that there's a story like the Kamala Harris speech at the Democrat convention. That's the example that I think they gave in their ad that I saw. And it was covered much more by the left than the right. You would expect that. That's to be expected. But there are other stories that are disproportionately covered by one side or the other that you wouldn't expect or that don't feel like they should have biased coverage. So that intrigued me. So I'm curious to see what we learn from this blind spot formula. And this is the one that they've trademarked. So presumably they know that this is their kind of special sauce. I'm interested by this. So they have an example here. Republicans, the example is from the Washington Post. Republicans tell Biden tax hikes are a non-starter. Oh, Republicans tell Biden tax hikes are a non-starter in recovery plan for 2021. So for whatever reason, right-wing sources did not cover the Republicans telling Biden no tax hikes on the recovery plan. It's interesting. Anyway, getting back to the formula, the bias breakdown of the story must adhere to a specific formula in order to show up in the blind spot feed. For example, a blind spot for the left must meet the following conditions: fewer than 10 sources, 10 left-leaning sources, right-leaning coverage, greater than 33% left-leaning coverage. Okay, so basically there's a threshold beyond which they consider it to be a blind spot for the left or the right. So basically, there's some threshold where if there's not enough coverage on the left or very little coverage on the left, but a lot on the right, they call that a blind spot among the left. And if there's and then the reverse, if there's not a lot of coverage on the right, but there is on the left, they call that a blind spot to the right. Makes sense. Fair enough. Download Ground today. Okay, there's an app. There's always an app. Of course, there's an app. All right, let's do it. Let's jump right in. Let's home. Okay, I clicked home. There's some tabs. It says Israeli-Hamas conflict. Let me lower this so you can see that. Kamala Harris, U.S. economy. These are just the default ones. Maybe these are like the most popular ones right now. Donald Trump, women's rights, U.S. crime, U.S. politics, NASA, NFL, Republican Party, and abortion. Let's get started. I'm a little overwhelmed. There's a lie in my face here, but it could just be because I'm not used to the layout here. I also I don't actually really like dark mode sites personally. Oh, look, we can click out of it. Let's do light mode. I don't know why, but for me, I feel a lot more comfortable in light mode than dark mode on my computer. I think on my phone, I prefer it the other way. Okay, and also I brightened up my screen a lot because I was testing some camera stuff, and I cannot stand a bright screen. I can't really stand a bright anything, so that might be why I'm feeling overwhelmed by the site. I'm going to take my screen brightness back where it normally is, which is almost as low as it can go. And oh my goodness, it's so much better already. Okay, so the big headline, Brazil's Supreme Court judge orders X, Twitter, formerly, to shut down the country. So it says this has been covered 43% by the left, 28% by the center, 29% by the right. Let's click and see how this works. Now, one of the things I don't like about all sides, or that's beginning to frustrate me about all sides, I'm just going to be honest, which is what made me want to explore this, is it feels like a lot of the links at all sides are going to paywalled sites that have a paywall. You got to pay to see the article. And it's just really annoying to me because it means that I have to rely on the summary from all sides. And I'm just trusting that they're not biased. They're the anti-bias site, but how do I know they're not biased? I want to read the article to get my own take on it. So let's see if their sources here have the same problem. Okay. A judge. So Brazil Supreme. Did you guys hear about the story? So basically there was some threats that were made to X, formerly known as Twitter, to censor basically some folks that were in opposition to the what's his name, Bolsonaro, the leader of Brazil, who by the way is considered to be far right, and good on Elon Musk for saying no, we're not going to do that for the right or the left. And Elon Musk published the threatening letter saying we're not abiding by your censorship requests. And they said that they were going to withdraw their local Brazilian office, but continue to make X available. And now the Brazilian Supreme Court is saying that X has to be shut down. So a judge in Brazil ordered the suspension of X after owner Elon Musk did not name a new legal representative, according to Bloomberg. Brazil's Supreme Court gave X a 24-hour notice to appoint a representative or face a ban. Judge Alexandre Dumoris warned Musk that failure to comply could block X in Brazil, emphasizing that his actions protect democracy. So what they're talking about is that they were requiring X to put somebody back on the ground in Brazil to answer to these censorship requests. Elon Musk was saying, I'm not putting one of my employees at that type of risk. And I got to tell you, you guys know about the Telegram, that messaging app? The Telegram CEO getting arrested in France, a billionaire getting arrested in France for refusing to comply with censorship requests, I can understand why you wouldn't want to put just a regular middle of the road employee at that type of risk. If you have like international one percenters that are getting hauled into prison in a country like France because they're refusing to censor accounts, well, what kind of chance do you think like a mid-level ex-employee has in Brazil? The answer is not much. Good on Elon, I think. Anyway, so here's some other. All right, so back to reviewing the site. It seems to be working okay, right? So then it's got all the articles that talk about this listed. X ordered to shut down in Brazil Supreme Court. Brazilian judge suspends X. So it's got 8 articles listed that reference this. This is kind of cool. And within each article, highlighted above the article are 3 categories, like we talked about at the top. Who owns it? Interesting that they put that first, by the way. Follow the money, I guess. Who owns it? Their factuality rating versus like opinion based. And left, right, center. So the first one is something called CTV News. Never heard of it. But they are a media conglomerate owned by Bell Media. You know Bell Media. Neither do I. High factuality, which is probably why we don't know it. And center leaning. So we could click on this, presumably, and see what the good people of CTV News have to say. Here comes the paywall. Yes, no whammies. All right. Okay. Great. All right. Well, that worked. That's 1 for 1. We go straight to the article. We're not going to read it. You know, I feel like if I'm paying $20 a year for this site, then when they send me to something, they should get me past the paywall. Doesn't that feel fair? Let's click on one that I know has a paywall. I think Washington Post is normally a paywall, and that's next. That's the next one up here. Click right there. Boom. News from Washington Post. I clicked the wrong thing. Let's click read full article. Here we go. Okay. Well, so far so good. Seems to have gotten us past the paywall. We could read the article. Guys, if that's the case, that alone could make this worth paying for versus all sides. I have to tell you. Because I really want all of us, both myself and the loyal listeners of this program, I want us to be people that read firsthand sources that aren't afraid of people that we might not agree with getting a platform, and we listen to them and we learn what they have to say so we know what we're talking about. Like the Kamala Harris interview last night. Just watch the interview. It was only, who knows, there's only like 15 or 20 minutes of content. You can go to YouTube and watch just the interview portions and skip all the commentary. It didn't take long. Regardless of what you think about Kamala, especially if you don't like her, actually, you should watch what she has to say. But all right, this is pretty good. I mean, so far to me, what I'm like, my quick summary is, I still feel like the format is just like a little too much in my face, but maybe it's better on a phone. But I do like that it gets through the paywall. I kind of thought this like blind spot thing would be more useful, but maybe we just haven't figured it out yet. Let's keep going. All right, so back at the front of the page, maybe we can like find a blind. Oh, here it is. Okay, so at the top, you click blind spot. Right, I click blind spot. I'm gonna click blind spot. This is cool. All right, so I clicked blind spot, and it brings me to the blind spot feed, which it titles Stories Disproportionately Covered by One Side of the Political Spectrum. I'm getting used to the layout here, by the way. It's not bothering me as much anymore. For the left, news stories that had little to no reporting on the left. U.S. funded over 1,000 patents for China-based research, data shows. Ooh, daddy. 0% coverage from the left. Interesting. Do we dare click on this? You know, that the censors They are still out. They are still out for anti-vax coverage, quote unquote. I don't even want to say it. It's going to get transcripted and I'm going to get shadow banned. I probably should have said that either. But they are out for it. Read the policies on YouTube and Google and stuff, and you can't say anything. You can't say anything. I'm going to click it anyway because I'm brave. U.S. funded over 1,000 patents for China-based research data shows. Blind spot for the left. Left is not reporting this, according to Ground.news. Well, let's see what the story is, and let's see how reliable it is, who's reporting it on the right to begin with. U.S. funded 1,000 patents for China. I'm going to read it. Ready? Here are the bullet points, the summaries from Ground.news. It says, insights by Ground AI. Ground News, left, center, right. Summaries and bias comparison are based on AI-assisted analysis of the articles linked below. I wonder which AI tool they use. Beta feature, great. And if the summary is wrong, we can report it. Let's read the summary. The U.S. Defense Department, NASA, and other agencies funded research leading to over 1,000 U.S. patents for China-based inventors since 2010, primarily in biotech and semiconductors. So what they're saying is that our Defense Department, as well as NASA, has funded over 1,000 patents in the last 14 years for China-based researchers. I don't know. Do you have a problem with that? You got a problem with that, buddy? I don't know if I have a problem with that. I think I might have a problem with that. It feels weird, but I don't know. Reports indicate, I'm reading again, reports indicate that a total of 1,020 patents were filed from 2010 to early 2024 involving U.S. government-funded research. Chinese entities. Data provided to the House of Representatives Select Committee could prompt calls to renegotiate the U.S.-China technology agreement, which critics argue favors China's interests. Well, it certainly seems to favor China's interests. They're like, why are we funding Chinese research? It's like weird. We are like the leading technology country in the whole world. I don't understand why we're funding Chinese research. Doesn't make sense to me. Weird. So here's some of the articles. One comes from Reuters, which is censor. It says, high factuality, private equity, Woodbridge Company. Interesting. They say patent data amplifies calls to cancel or renegotiate a landmark cooperation deal. Japan Times, never heard of it. This is interesting. I like that I've never heard of it. High factuality, center. Let's click at Japan Times. Let's see if we can read the article. It's getting us past the paywalls so far. Yeah, interesting. U.S. funded over 1,000 patents for China-based research data shows, and then here's the article. Okay. Epoch Times. Okay, yeah, they've got them right. They are definitely right. I would put them at far right, personally. All right, and I guess as we scroll down, with Liberty Daily. Liberty Daily, what do you think? You think they're going to be far right? You'd be right. So this is cool. I can see what is being ignored by the left, which might tell me something. Let's go back to blind spot and let's see what's being ignored by the right. What are the blind spots on the right? What are... This is weird. Why would this be ignored by the right? It seems interesting. Trump film The Apprentice finds distributor will open before election. Why isn't the right covering this? Is like an anti-Trump film, maybe? But even so, still cover it. What is going on? Like, that's kind of a big deal to me, right? I don't know anything about this Apprentice movie. But even if it's a film mocking Trump, the fact that it's got distribution and they're rushing it out before the election feels like newsworthy if you're from the right. All right, so here we go. Portland Press Herald, Portland, Maine, Mixed Factuality Center. Controversial Trump biopic, The Apprentice, lands U.S. release date before Election Day. The Wrap, another publication. Trump biopic The Apprentice closes acquisition with Briarcliff for pre-election release. Hey, Trump film The Apprentice finds distributor. I don't want to go into these articles, but like, why is it controversial? Let's see. Let's click on the Portland Press Herald article and see if we can figure out why it's controversial. Controversial Trump biopic The Apprentice lands U.S. release date before Election Day. The blurb is Donald Trump's campaign has slammed the movie, but the director says it's time to make movies political again. I'm sorry. That is one of the funniest things I've read in a long time. It's time to make movies political again, because that is what America's been saying. Could we please politicize our movies? We are so tired of being entertained without having to think about politics all day long. We never hear anything about politics. Nothing's politicized. Please, instead of just making enjoyable movies that we can watch and pay $10 to see and have a reasonably good time, could you please make them political again? Yeah, we've all been saying that. Well, this guy, good luck with that, buddy. Let's see how this goes. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe it's a great movie. Here's one October surprise you could put on your calendar now. The Donald Trump biopic, The Apprentice, which set tongues a-wagging when it premiered. I'm reading this. It's really what it says. Which set tongues wagging when it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May has secured theatrical distribution by Briarcliff Entertainment and will hit theaters on October 11th, less than a month before the presidential election. I just want to know who the director is that thinks we need to make movies political again. Directed by Iranian filmmaker Ali Abbasi. Like the name Ali Abbasi. Very good name. Holy Spider, not familiar with it. The film, The Times called Hypnotically Trashy, offers a decidedly unflattering depiction of Trump as a sleazy, cruel social climber who turns his back on his alcoholic brother, rapes his first wife on the floor of their New York penthouse, and undergoes liposuction and cosmetic surgery for hair loss. Yeah. Sounds like a good one. I just want to get a quote from Abbasi again, because the director who says it's time to make movies political again has a really great quote. Again, let me make sure it's time to make. Oh, it's the rest of this quote. It's time to make movies political again. He brushed aside Trump's threats to block the film. Everybody talks about him suing a lot of people, Abbasi said. They don't talk about his success rate, though. I guess Trump sues a lot of people, but the suits don't often go anywhere, I guess is what he's saying. I don't know, but this is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Thank you, Ground.news, for putting this on my radar. I really appreciate it. All right, so far I'm loving this site, guys. I got to tell you, I am loving it. And the reason I'm loving it is because it's shown me things that weren't on my radar. Because, like this thing, how can this be? How can this be? I ask you, listeners of this show, how can it be? Did you know about this? Did you know that there's like a trashy Trump movie coming out in October? Nobody's told me about it. Maybe you heard it here first. I heard it from Ground.news first. They don't pay me to say that. I just said it. I said it for free. They could pay me. I'd take it. But they don't pay me. I said it for free. Actually, I didn't say it for free. I paid to say it. I paid them to do this review, and I said it. That's pretty cool. All right, all kidding aside, we're getting a little hyped up here, but I don't know. I think this is a cool site. And don't you think it's weird though that the right, no outlet on the right has covered this at all. No outlet on the right has covered this, and you would think they would at least cover it in the guise of like saying how awful it is, right? But they're just totally ignoring it. It's so strange that we're no longer in a phase of media bias where we have to worry just about the bias. Now what happens is they just memory hole the things they don't like. That's a reference to 1984. They just take things that they don't think that you should be hearing, and they just disappear them. They just make it so it never was. So if you only get your news from a couple different sources, let's say like MSNBC and CNN, or Fox and Breitbart, or whatever, you're just going to have blind spots, like they call it on the site, just straight up stuff that is happening that you don't know about. And this one, like this Apprentice thing, it's a little silly, but don't you think you should still know? Or like the other one, it's not silly. The U.S. government funded 1,000 different patent research products for Chinese researchers. That feels like something that like both sides should know about. I am fascinated by this. What about this website? Let's take a look. And first of all, I think to me, it's a buy. I already bought it in order to review it, but I would buy it. And I bet you the app's better. Okay, I'm in Central Texas, so let's click like local. Local's probably lame. Nothing happens where I am. Bicycle crash. That's sad. But you know where I get my local news from, those community things. I love those. For you's got nothing because I haven't chosen any topics. You discover. So here's where you could choose all kinds of topics based on location, based on all kinds of different things. Like, I want news from Middle East. I want news New York City. All right. Browser extension. Want a second opinion on the news that you're reading? That's interesting. I'm not going to set this up, but so there's a browser extension. It senses that I'm using Safari so that it can pop up and tell me the level of bias on the article I'm reading. That's cool. This is cool. The site is a little cooler than I thought it was going to be. I have to say. Oh, and I like this. I heard about this too. Let me get this in the center of the screen. What I'm looking at is there's a My News bias for the Ground.news reader, and it shows what I'm reading and how much of what I'm reading, the articles that I'm clicking on, are coming from the left, center, right. So far, pretty darn balanced. And then I can click back here and see what stories I'm reading and all. I love data like that. Again, it's why this is called the political spectrum. I just love stuff like that. I'm definitely doing this. I'm doing this. You should do it, I think, because I really like the idea of coming back and seeing like my reading patterns and all that. I track my sleep. I track everything. I've got like data for everything I do. It's really first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I look at my sleep thing and see the quality of my sleep, what my watch said my sleep quality was, and I don't know. Cue the outro music. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you are a regular listener to the show, let me know if you did. If you're not, if you're new to this, then become a listener. This is what we normally do, except we spend more. We just go on like we go on a couple sites and, just a couple stories and talk about it. You can find us anywhere podcasts are. And you can also, we've only got a couple episodes up on YouTube because we just started posting those recently. But go to the one from Monday or Tuesday. It's a good one. I tell an interesting story about a professor that I met who specializes in racial voter suppression and some of the things that those folks told me off the record over a few beers. It's an interesting story. Go find that. It's episode 9 of The Political Spectrum. We're going to see you next week. This was worth it for me because I really like the site. I hope it was for you guys. Have a good Labor Day weekend. Don't work because it's Labor Day weekend, right? That's the rule. Don't work, just weekend. That's all. We'll see you next week. Bye.